Hello and good evening. I'm Tracy Harrison, the Partnership Project Officer for the Brecks, Fenedge and Rivers Landscape Partnership, or as some of you know as BFER for short.
Can you turn the sound up on the TV? Or it should be coming through on the TV.
The BFER project is all about preserving and celebrating the unique natural and cultural heritage
I know
of
it is.
the Brecks
Why isn't it coming up
region.
on TV?
Through the past 5 years and through a series of 24 core projects, the BFER team have engaged communities in activities ranging from environmental conservation to historical research, and we're extremely pleased to have been awarded a 6-month extension, which runs out the end of next month. So we've been busy doing that the last 6 months. I'm delighted to welcome you to this evening's session. It's the third webinar in our series, which is in partnership with Suffolk Association of Local Councils. Tonight we have two very knowledgeable growth highways and infrastructure staff from Suffolk Council, who I won't do justice introducing them, so I will let them introduce themselves fully in the session. But we're very, very lucky to have them here and give up their time this evening to impart some knowledge with us. Just lastly, before I sign off here, some housekeeping. As I said to you, the session will be recorded and we will have it available in about a week's time for you to view or share with any colleagues. Could we ask you that you keep your microphone on mute throughout the session, please? And also, if you want to keep your cameras off, you're more than welcome to have your cameras off. Otherwise, do leave them on. And also, if you have any questions at all, please could you just type them in the chat, or keep them right to the end of the two presentations, and they will all be picked up at the end rather than making a disjointed presentation either through Bev's or Claire's presentation. Okay, I think I've virtually explained everything to everybody. If I've missed anything, I do apologise. I think now it's probably just over to you, Claire, unless I've missed anything, because I think you're first and then followed by Beverley.
I think you are. I hope. Good evening, everybody. Hope you don't mind. We are going to do them back to back just because there may be some crossover on some odd questions. So please feel free during mine. If you've got a pressing question, do put that in the chat and I can answer those and put links in during Bev's presentation. So, and then we do have some adequate amount of time for questions at the end. Anything that's been a bit more in depth for me to answer, I can come back to you separately and share that, ask SALC to share that wider to all the participants today. Now, please bear with me because I've got to share my screen, and I do, just to let you know, I do have a couple of videos embedded in there, so I'm hoping they will work. If they don't, I do apologise, and we'll try them via the YouTube channel, but it's just trial and error. It works fine internally, but I'm just a little bit conscious in case that doesn't work as straightforward as I'd like it to today. So bear with me one moment. Right, I hope everybody can see that. Tracy, can you confirm that you can see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Sorry, apologies. Right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Claire Dickson. I'm the Operations Manager for the Rights and Way and Access team in Suffolk County Council. I manage part of our service and I'm responsible for the team that covers the protection and maintenance of public rights of way. Just to let you know that we have over 3,500 miles of footpaths, bridleways, restricted byways and byways open to traffic across the county in both rural and urban areas. A little fact, that's a very, very similar size to the road network, but I have quite a small team that covers the protection and maintenance responsibility. Recently, we've produced a short film to highlight some of this work that the team undertake. I'm going to share that with you in a moment, and that'll give you a brief overview of the work that they carry out on a daily basis, and then I'll give you more of an in-depth talk through the responsibilities of the various areas of the team. Okay, let's see if this works. Tracy, please tell me if it doesn't.
Will do. It's all fine.
I'm in the definitive map team, which is part of the Public Rights of Way and Access department. The essential job is to maintain and update the definitive map and statement for Suffolk. The definitive map is the legal record for public rights of way, footpaths, bridleways, restricted byways and byways open to all traffic. It's a record that was established in the 1950s based on how people use the countryside. I've been working on a project to update the definitive map and statement for Suffolk. We're using modern technology to replace the outdated hand-drawn maps. By producing the new maps using GIS-based technology, we can make them more accurate and easier to interpret. Anyone can view the definitive map. It's held in the County Council archives. Most people would refer to the working copy maps on the website, as we keep these up to date as and when there are any changes. One thing I really enjoy is working with historic mapping, county series maps, which were produced around 1900, over 100 years ago, and they're actually really accurate. They've not changed in over 100 years and people still use these every day, and it's exciting to be part of preserving them. I am like source of knowledge for where should you go for a walk. I'm Hannah and I'm a definitive map officer at Suffolk County Council.
So in Suffolk there's over 5,000 kilometres of rights of way, and on that network we have over 3,200 bridges which are managed and surveyed by our area officers. And on top of that we do an annual grass cutting programme that's over 3,500 kilometres. The operations team is responsible for the protection and maintenance of public rights of way in Suffolk as described by the definitive map and statement. This means working both reactively to public reports such as damaged bridges or obstructions, as well as proactively managing annual programmes of grass cutting. The operations team are based all around Suffolk and we work in a really hybrid way. Each area rights of way officer has their own geographical patch that they look after. Customers input reports either directly to us or on our online reporting tool. Depending on what the issue is, we'll either get back to the customer, liaise with landowners or talk to our local contractors to carry out some works. I think the main thing I love about the job is really the differences you can make to individual people and communities, whether that's fixing a couple of steps that one person in particular uses or surfacing a major route that gets people from A to B in a more healthy, green way. We like to think we've delivered some real win-wins for local people and communities. My name's James, I'm the West Area Rights of Way Manager in the operations team for Suffolk County Council.
Green Access Planning team focus is on how we improve the public rights of way, but also with one eye on protecting the network as well. We'll scope a site and we'll sort of look at various options and improvements that we'd like to carry out. This could be resurfacing a footpath, upgrading its status to bridleway, adding new signs. A significant part of what the Green Access Planning team does is responding to planning applications. This could be a single home extension to a large-scale development of hundreds of homes, right the way up to the nuclear power station at Sizewell C. A big part of the job role is getting out there and speaking to users of the network. And I like to go and review a job maybe 2 months after to see how it's holding up, but also how the local community are finding the improvement. To be honest, I love my job. It gives me the ability to work right across Suffolk. I get out on site a lot. I get to meet a lot of different people, to see someone on a wheelchair that wouldn't have been able to access this site before. There's a great feeling, so it really does give you a sense of satisfaction. I love delivering projects and I love seeing people use the projects. I'm Oliver Wastel, I'm Green Access Delivery Officer with the Rights of Way Planning team in Suffolk County Council.
Very lucky in Suffolk, we've got over 3,500 miles of rights of way for people to access. So our job is to promote, enable and encourage people to get out and to show them where they are allowed to walk and cycle and ride. We know there's a huge benefit of people being outside, but with our research with the University of East Anglia, we also recognise that some people have different barriers and don't have the same opportunities to the access. So we work with charities and groups that struggle to access the countryside and we show them where they can visit. We also have a series of easy access and easy going trails for people that need a different surface to walk on, maybe to help people with wheelchairs or prams to get out and about as well. So we promote all of our trails using leaflets, on social media, using local media, and more recently we've been creating routes on our Discover Suffolk app. Some people really like to use an app which enables our users to follow routes that we've created with points of interest and audio guides along the way. Lots of our walks also have leaflets that you can download or that you can pick up from places around Suffolk. So my favourite part of the job is being able to be out and about, because I really do like walking and being outside. To know that the work that we do on the Green Access team enables other people to get out and enjoy the countryside as much as I do, that's very satisfying. I'm Jane Scolding and I'm a Green Access Officer for Suffolk County Council.
Right. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed that. That just gives you a little insight into some of our team members. There are humans behind all of these reports that you put in, and how diverse our team is now in what we deliver, and the other considerations that we have due to you know, how Suffolk is changing and the vast amount of sort of national significant infrastructure projects and also development that's ongoing. But I want to take you back to the beginning. The picture I'm sharing with you here is actually Kinder Scout. This is part of the crowd of the mass trespass of April 1932. Believed that there were over 400 people that took part, and this was organised by the Manchester branch of the British Workers' Sports Federation. Now, the area had been popular with hiking since the early 1800s. You know, this is one of the things with public rights of way, that they've been used historically for hundreds and hundreds of years for many, many routes. But this area in particular was fiercely guarded by the landowners, frequently obstructing access. So there was a great deal of conflict. So this area is also very close to industrial settlements, and the hiking was becoming increasingly popular for outdoor recreation. So Kinder Scout mass trespass actually triggered a number of subsequent protests, and there was extreme heavy lobbying of the government, and this resulted in the National Parks and Access to the Countryside Act of 1949. Now, the Act required all county councils in England and Wales to survey their county and publish a definitive map and statement. The majority in Suffolk were published in the early 1950s, roughly about 1951-52. Now, here is the definitive map. We have the first definitive map for Long Melford, the Melford area, and we have the current definitive map. Now, as you can see, there's quite a contrast between the two. So what is the definitive map? Well, it's the conclusive legal record of the existence of routes, confirming their status and location, and it basically records all public rights of way at that relevant date in time. So the one on there would have been from the roughly 1942, and the current one was actually published in May 2003. So the relevant date is quite important, because that is the date on when all confirmed legal orders have been last consolidated on the map, and that is a sealed legal document. So you'll notice there's a difference in the background mapping, and that is because we have recently, well, over the last sort of 15 years, consolidated the definitive map. So that's brought it in, like I said, to the new modern day background mapping. Previously, prior to this, you were still on the sort of old county historic mapping. So a lot of development wasn't on there. You would have had new sort of roads. Even the A14 was just a solid black line rather than the modern day mapping. So we have a duty under the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981 to maintain and update the definitive map and statement. These are all available for public inspection at our County Council office, which is actually at Phoenix House, but they're also available online, and I've put a link into the document there. So they're all scanned, and you can actually, with the new modern day ones, actually zoom in and out, but their actual scale is 1 to 10,000, and they're supported by an accompanying statement that describes the route. It may also state any limitations such as gates, stiles or bollards, and it may also include a specific width. So please do, when you get a chance, if you aren't familiar with the definitive map, I'm sure most parish clerks do hold that, but please do familiarise yourself with that document. So we're then thinking about the first definitive map from the early 1950s. We can actually add to the definitive map or amend it. So for adding routes to the definitive map is predominantly done through a definitive map modification order. We call them DMMOs. We have acronyms for everything, unfortunately. And the DMMOs can be done in two different ways, either through historic evidence, which is often presented to us through historic mapping and legal records that may date back. They may appear on old tithe maps, and also supported then maybe through their original County 1 series ordnance survey maps. So a lot of people do an awful lot of research with documents that are held at the hold, or potentially also online. A really good source of information is the National Library for Scotland, which actually they have all of the County 1, 2 and 3 series maps available online to view. Ironic, whereas Scotland doesn't actually have any public rights of way, but it's a great source of information. The other way is through user evidence, and this is for 20 years of unobstructed use of a route. Now, that, when I say unobstructed, so you're not climbing over gates or ignoring private signs. So we do have a number of claims that are put through to us each year on that user evidence, and I've worked with a number of parish councils over the years to help collate that information. The other alterations to a definitive map are through public path orders. These are either usually through the Highways Act or the Town and Country Planning Act. The Highway Act ones are predominantly used for in the interests of the landowner, where they may want to slightly realign a route that works better for how they're managing the land. But we also do some which are in the interests of the public, where actually we may upgrade a route from a footpath to a bridleway, or we actually have a realignment issue where we're actually maybe resolving a long-term obstruction. And then we also have creations, which are either done by agreement with the landowner or by order. We rarely do creation orders, but they are if there's a very strong case that we need an additional route in the because it's got high level of public benefit. But creation agreements are usually done in working with a landowner to provide vital additional access. I will state that for definitive map modification orders and public path orders and creation orders, you can actually, it is a consultation process as well, and you do have the powers to object on there. All DMMOs are carried out by the definitive map team, but public path orders for the ones in the interest of a landowner, whether it's because of a planning issue or actually just a realignment issue, are actually carried out by the district council, and the county act as a consultee. So we also have some other powers and and documents that we have to store as well, which is a statutory declaration. Now, these are where landowner can deposit a statement declaring where public rights of way cross their land, and stating at that time that they have no intention of dedicating any further public rights of way. Now, these can be deposited at any time, and we hold a full register of these. This doesn't mean it's in situ forevermore. They're now actually for a period of 20 years, and it's very reliant on the landowner to renew that. But it is a legal requirement for us under the Highways Act to actually hold those. And again, they can be viewed online. The other sort of more permanent change that we have for use of routes is a traffic regulation order. Now, I will come on to temporary traffic regulation orders later on, but we do have many permanent TROs, and these are usually to prohibit a type of user or users from a route. We have a number of byways across the county that actually are restrict vehicular use on there, mainly because they were very ancient old lanes and were never suitable for maybe 4x4 use. So we do have those available well, and they are also recorded on our website. Now, coming on to more my part of the team. So here you'll see many acts of parliament and maybe a typical sign that occasionally you might come across where somebody wants to restrict access. But the operations team are responsible for protecting and maintaining the network to ensure it's open and available for use by the public. Suffolk's network is quite large in comparison to a number of the other counties across England, and we have a significant number of definitive map orders that have been carried out over the last 30 years. This has been down to not only historic evidence but also user evidence. So the definitive maps look quite different from where they did in the early 1950s. If it gives you some kind of comparison, we had a number of parishes that didn't even have a legally recorded public right of way, mainly down because the parish may well have been owned at that time by one landowner. So now a lot of work has been done by not only parish councils but also user groups and individuals to ensure that those routes are the evidence is presented to us and recorded. So my team consists of 6 area officers who all have a patch within the county. There are also 2 additional managers and a couple of support staff, so it's not a big team. Due to the geographical size of the county, those patches that the area officers cover are quite large. So we rely heavily on the public to be our eyes and ears, alerting us to issues. Just want to run through what some of the responsibilities are, because I think a lot of people are sometimes unclear as to what the public have some responsibilities, what the landowner's responsibilities are, and what the county council's legal responsibilities. So public responsibility is very much about following and to comply with the countryside code. I've just broken this down slightly, but the countryside code did change a couple of years ago, so it's a bit more wide ranging and now. But I just want to make it, the principles are still there, that the public should always follow signs and keep to marked paths and try and plan ahead if you're going to an area that you're not familiar with. And the right is purely for use for its designated purpose. So if it's a footpath, the public's right is to pass and repass on foot or with a usual accompaniment like a dog or a pushchair. It isn't then to ride a horse down a footpath. With the only way you're able to do that is with the landowner permission. And public should keep to the paths as much as anything to avoid trespass onto the land. When you veer off that public right of way, that is private land. And I know it's more confusing in the last sort of 15 to 20 years with the conservation margins and buffer strips. You should always leave the gates and property as you found them. Please be wary of, if you're in a field of livestock and the gate, do please ensure that is closed. It is something that we have had in the past with gates being left open deliberately. It causes a lot of conflict between the public and a land manager. We also please make sure you protect plants, try not to disturb wildlife and take the litter home. And something that's quite important is dogs should be kept under close control. There is no legal requirement for them to be kept on a lead on a public right of way, but they should be under close control. A lot of interpretation is only to be a short distance ahead of you or to heel. Also, the dog should avoid straying from the path. Again, they would be committing trespass. And please show consideration for other people. Try and avoid obstructing field gates when you're parking. Use lay-bys or car parks or a wider section of the road as long as it's safe to do so. I've given you a link here also to the Countryside Code and how there's quite an in-depth document now on the government website, but it covers 3 areas, particularly respecting other people, protecting the natural environment, and most importantly, enjoying the outdoors. We have the landowner responsibilities. Now, these are quite clear that actually they should ensure that rights of way are not obstructed, and the obstruction can be anything that prevents convenient use of the route. It may not necessarily be a physical obstruction. I'll give you an example of that shortly. And they also need to ensure that all the field edge, public rights of way, and all byways and restricted byways are not disturbed. So you may come across a byway across the middle of the field, and that should not be disturbed during any farming operation. They also need to ensure that crossfield footpaths and bridleways, if they are disturbed for farming operations, that they are reinstated and reasonably easy to use. We do have under the Rights of Way Act that they actually have to reinstate after first disturbance, which is often the plough, after 14 days, and any disturbance subsequently is 24 hours for reinstatement. They should also obtain consent from ourselves for putting any gates or stiles. I will stipulate now that we do not authorise any new a new stile in a new location to go in. It would always be a gate. We can actually authorise a stile to be replaced with another stile, but we thoroughly encourage landowners to look at replacing those with a gate. They should also maintain that furniture so it's in a condition that's safe and easy to use. And they are also required to contact the county council before carrying out any works that impact the right of way, and that is in particular the surface. So it's not any grass cutting, but any disturbance that they may undertake that damages the surface. So, and as stated earlier, ensure that the public are not deterred from using a right of way, either verbally or in a number of cases misleading signs. Just giving you a couple of examples here. We have a very good crossfield reinstatement where landowners doing exactly what they should be doing. And then I have a couple of one more common sign. We often come across a private no footpath sign when actually there is legally a public right of way there. And a little bit more of an unusual one where we had some livestock, some goats, which okay, they can be in that paddock where the public rights of way crosses, but we then had a gate hurdle put across the path, and actually that was secured shut, so nobody could pass along that route. So it's not necessarily you're going to have a hay bale or something put in your way. Sometimes you have something a little bit more unusual. And then probably understand what the county council's responsibilities are. Well, our main one is to ensure that all rights of way are free from obstruction and can be used by the public at all times. We also have to keep the surface of the rights of way in good repair and manage the natural surface growth, including field edge rights of way. We obviously don't manage the surface growth across a crossfield path, which should be kept free from any crop by the landowner. We also have a duty to signpost rights of way where they leave a metalled road, and where appropriate, waymark rights of way. There isn't actually a full legal responsibility to waymark, but we do so where our budgets allow. We also are required to authorise any gates and stiles on public rights of way, and to keep the definitive map and statement up to date. So we also have a number of other challenges. It's not all, buttercups and daisies out there. One of our biggest challenges, and this has been really apparent over the last few years, is the weather. We have quite prolific surface growth at times. This year it's been quite a hot and dry summer, but a few years ago we couldn't cut the grass fast enough, so we had a number of issues with upgrowth. We also had some very wet winters, so we've had a significant amount of damage to roots over a number of years. But one of our most testing 24 hours was when Storm Babette hit Suffolk in 2023. During probably less than about 7 hours, we actually had lost 75 of our bridges. So the one on the screen there was actually from about 50 metres away, and that was in Coddenham. So we had a real significant issue that a number of them, actually the force of the water lifted them up and off, and ones were found in the middle of the field, some were completely smashed up. So it was a real sort of effort for us to try and get the network open and usable after that storm. It didn't help that within less than 2 weeks we had Kieran and Storm Kieran, and a number of other ones moved during that time as well. So I just touched on bridges. Just to give you some kind of context, we have over 3,200 bridges across the county that my team manage. So it's quite a number. So 3,000 of the smaller ones are managed by my team. So that's anything from a sleeper bridge up to sort of like a 10-metre wooden bridge. And the remaining sort of 200, which you can see one at the top of the screen there, are managed by Suffolk Highways. That is due to their size and their construction. So they work very closely with myself about replacements on there. And we have this one here was recently carried out in Bardwell. It took some time to ensure we got the funding, because this bridge actually cost more than my overall annual capital budget, which covers all of our assets from any bridges, boardwalks, signing, waymarking, and also any sort of repairs to maybe metal surfaces. So we also have over 20 miles of boardwalk across the county, and we also have a significant amount of surfaced routes. So these are usually unsealed bound surfaces, so they may have like a hogging or granite surface. And the other part of what I spend most of our budget on over each year, and this is our grass cutting. We have a dedicated budget for this. We cut over 2,150 miles over the year, and they're actually cut twice, so during 2 6-week periods. I think a number of you who are perhaps the parish clerks, you sometimes work with us, and some of the work is carried out through your contractors. Some we pay landowners to cut on our behalf. We also have a number of independent contractors who also carry out our cutting, and that's done through a full competitive tender process, so we get the best value for money that we possibly can. And I've compared that to neighbouring authorities, and we come in about 20% cheaper than a number of neighbouring authorities, so that's really good for the public purse. But that also comes with challenges. Some of our routes are in remote locations, and unfortunately we're not in a position to cut absolutely everything, and it is prioritised to make sure we cut the promoted routes and also the routes that are most important to each parish. As part of the tender, we also have our team. They actually inspect 10% of the cutting each year to make sure that that is carried out to the terms of the tender. We have had in the past where that hasn't been, and we've actually terminated the tender to certain contractors, because we need to ensure we are getting best value for money. So the other thing, items that my team deal with are temporary traffic regulation orders. Now this is under the Road Traffic Act, and we can actually grant a temporary closure of a public right of way for up to 6 months. Any subsequent extension to that needs to be approved by the Secretary of State. This is usually perhaps to allow for works to be carried out on the public right of way, or it may be that there are works adjacent and there are safety concerns on there. These come into play quite heavily with developments across the county. But really we're quite rigorous now in approving these and making sure that maybe a developer can accommodate that public right of way through maybe terrace fencing, or even something like a banksman, and for that to be temporarily gated and manned. We also can issue emergency traffic regulation orders, which can be for up to 21 days, and then they can be extended as a full 6-month temporary one. These are often where there may have been damage to the surface after Storm Babette. We had to have a number of emergency closures in place. So we have to ensure that those routes are safe. So we do have the powers to immediately close routes if required. As parish clerks, if we do close a route, you should be emailed a copy of that traffic regulation order, and also the county councillor should also receive a copy of those. They are also all held on our website. So we also then say sometimes people want to do works on a public right of way, but actually maybe perhaps it works for a couple of hours, and a full traffic regulation order seems a bit over the top, and they can man that through banksman and get people safely through the route. However, they must apply for authorisation to do work on a public right of way. It is an offence to disturb the surface without the highway authority permission. So we always say there's no charge for that, for the application for authorisation works. So we do always say to landowners, just run this past us first of all. It covers them, but it also covers us. We've had many a time where a utility company has come in, dug a trench, filled it back in, and we've not found out about it until that reinstatement has actually failed. So we just need to make sure that we are fully aware of what is going on our network. The other important thing is, I stated earlier, is actually reporting issues to us. Hopefully most of you are aware of the customer reporting tool, and this is predominantly used by Suffolk Highways for reporting issues on roads, but it is also the reporting tool for issuing reports on the public rights of way network. So I've put a link in there. It does take you to the same bit, and you can navigate through onto the mapping. You can either put in a parish or a postcode or a road name, or you can click on a location on the map. You can zoom right in, and the rights of way layer does come up, so you can pinpoint accurately where the issue is. We on average have 4,500 reports a year for my part of the team. Now that has doubled in the last 5 years. We wouldn't say that the network is getting worse. It's actually probably the network's getting more popular. So we've got more people out there exploring further. The 5 years is quite significant. We did see an overnight increase in usage during COVID, during those lockdown periods where many places like the National Trust and any parks, the country parks and sort of RSPB sites all closed. The only bit of access to the rural areas was mainly on the public rights of way network. So it did actually see an increase in use. My team often comment now that they rarely have a site visit where they don't see 2 or 3 groups of people out walking. Previously, they go to some of these remote locations and they wouldn't see a soul on their inspections all day long. So it's a positive from that point of view, but we really do find it invaluable to report issues to us. Like I stipulated, we only have a small team, so it's really important to ensure that any issues are logged. It also helps me for future funding, and to ensure that every issue is logged on the reporting tool. Now, the other part of work that my team are undertaking is the England Coast Path. So, or correctly, I should use it's the National Trail, and it's the King Charles III England Coast Path. Now, East Anglia is one of the last sort of sections of this that is awaiting approval, and in Suffolk we have a number of stretches. So actually go all the way, whichever way you want to go, from Catawade, from Manningtree, right the way up to Hopton between Lowestoft and Great Yarmouth. Now, this is split into different stretches on here, and we currently have 48.2 miles opened in Suffolk. Now, that's the stretch from Shotley Gate to Felixstowe, and also we have the stretch from Aldborough to Southwold, and then from Pakefield to Hopton near Great Yarmouth. So those stretches are opened, and they have all been opened in the last year. And I have some news for you. Another stretch is opening for public use tomorrow, which is the stretch of the Deben Estuary. So that's from Felixstowe Ferry to Bawdsey. Now, not all of the England Coast Path is actually on public rights of way. A number of this is new access. So you will come across, if you are out there using this, we've got new access on this stretch at the Deben, from Bawdsey to Ramsholt, and also from sort of the Marsh and Waldringfield area. There is new access there. It's all signed with the acorns, and I've put some links in for you to cover the links to the information for the government website, but also the National Trails website. Now, the County Council weren't behind this. This is actually that for the government, and has been led by Natural England. They have done all the consultations with landowners, which have been going on since 2010, and all the reports were produced by 2019 with what they believe the approved routes. There have been a number of objections to those, and that has resulted in many planning inspector site visits and reports produced, and ultimately all stretches have to be signed off by the Secretary of State. We also last week, so like I said, we're opening the new stretch of the Deben tomorrow, and that's taken sort of about 15 months to actually get all of those works done, mainly because the sensitivity of the coast and the habitat regulations assessments that we have to carry out, but we also have to get grant approval for the works from Natural England. So it's not as simple as me asking my team to go in and put in a new boardwalk there, and it's done within a matter of weeks. This has significantly lengthened the time that we have to allow to get works done. So it is a longer process than sort of our standard public rights of way works. So the other news was on this. Last week on Thursday, the 18th of September, we received Secretary of State approval for the remaining stretches. So this was a stretch that was objected to, that runs between Manningtree and Shotley, and also another stretch that was objected to, which I carried out a site visit with the landowner, Natural England, and also the planning inspector in March 24, and that is the stretch from Southwold to Pakefield. So hopefully in just under a year, those stretches will be open, and then you'll be able to walk the whole of the Suffolk coastline from Manningtree right the way up to the Norfolk border. A number of you might be familiar with our Suffolk Green Access Strategy. This is our rights of way improvement plan, and this is a requirement for us under the Countryside and Rights of Way Act of 2000 to produce an improvement plan. We're now on our second version of this. The first one was published in 2006 prior to consultation with parish councils and user groups and the public, and then another consultation was carried out prior to the 2020 document being published. An interesting fact on there, this gives a number of objectives and what we want to try and achieve as the highway authority in relation to rights of way and access. It was really interesting that it previously stated that 38% of parishes have a dedicated council member for public rights of way. We often know them as footpath wardens. Part of me was a little bit surprised by that. I thought it might have been higher. So if you don't have a footpath warden on your parish council and it is something that you would be interested in, my team would be happy to come and meet you as a parish council and talk you through how we can work together for that role and how we can support you. It doesn't give you, you know, a legal requirement, but it's often quite a vital role to be eyes and ears on the ground, and also sometimes results in some really positive volunteer work. So the beast that is planning, we now have a dedicated planning team to respond to applications, negotiate Section 106 agreements. They review thousands of applications a year. You know, planning has absorbed our team for the last sort of 20 plus years, and it got to a point that we couldn't cope anymore sort of a couple of years ago. So we, like I said, they review thousands of applications a year. They provide hundreds of detailed responses, and they are in a position to strongly object to planning applications now if it means that they are going to be obstructing or doing something detrimental to that public right of way. We have a much greater voice. We also are consulted on local plans, neighbourhood plans and local transport plans. So we have a dedicated team for responding to those applications, but also the delivery of Section 106 and community infrastructure levy improvements. Hopefully we can work with a number of parishes in their neighbourhood plans in the future. And the other part of the planning is the national significant infrastructure projects. Suffolk has majorly been impacted through nuclear power stations, cable corridors, pylon corridors, offshore wind farms, solar farms, you name it, we've got it in Suffolk or it's coming. The team are often working on an NSIP 3 or 4 years prior to actually entering into examination. This is extremely time consuming. The examinations themselves are 6 months and we are very time limited on the responses. We also have to attend issue specific hearings, but we want to ensure that the network is protected. Now, we have also produced a supplementary guidance document along with a number of other ones that the County Council, particularly Growth, Highways and Infrastructure have produced, which and we've got a specific rights of way one. It really makes it clear as to what we expect from developers, and also, you know, it is what they need to include in the development consent order. We would ideally like public rights of way to be its own separate chapter. We haven't got there so far with an NSIP. We're usually dumped in partly with highways, sometimes with socioeconomic and tourism. So we really feel, because it's actually there isn't an NSIP that doesn't impact public rights of way, that should be considered. So that's really being lobbied going forward. I just want to talk a little bit about the partnership work that we do. You'll meet Bev shortly. She works for the National Landscapes team, but we work in partnership with both the National Landscape teams, the Brecks, Edge and Rivers, Natural England, with BFER, Environment Agency, our active travel team. Now, they have brought in a great amount of external funding for us to carry out improvements which are beyond our statutory responsibilities. We're extremely lucky to have these partners to support the work that our team do, and it has been extremely positive through an engagement point of view, but also through physical improvements. Part of that work has also enabled us to do some promotional work and how we get more people active, and that and also reaches to a much wider audience than just the residents in Suffolk. Some of the team have previously contributed to the Suffolk magazine, provided content for national newspaper travel articles, and even had a starring role on Ramblings with Claire Balding. So it is out there getting a positive message about our access to our beautiful county. Part of that also is the work that we've done for a number of years within our promotional website called Discover Suffolk. Here you will find a number of walks and rides leaflets, which we've worked with several parish councils producing those over the years, audio trails, easygoing trails, and also an interactive map. If you're not familiar with the website, please do follow that link and take some time. If it is something that your parish would be interested in producing, a walks or rides leaflet, then do contact the team via Discover Suffolk, and one of the officers will make contact with you and see how we can work with you producing a leaflet going forward. Part of the work we also did through some external funding is come up with an app called Discovering Suffolk. Now, this is an interactive map that gives you live data on walks. It also provides an interactive map with an ordnance survey layer. Now, this gives the detailed explorer layer and pinpoints exactly where you are on that route or in the county. It's a fantastic tool. It's a free app. There is no charge. You will probably notice on a number of our signposts across the county that we have the QR codes that take you to that app. My officers use it on an everyday basis just to check they are in the correct location on a route if they feel like they've gone too far to have a look at something from a report. But it's a really fantastic tool. So and like I said, it's ordnance survey mapping that is free of charge. So as part of that as well, we also produced some other promotional information, which I would also like to share with you before I end the presentation. Sorry, I've got a bit of background noise. I just wanted to say thank you for your time this evening. I've put some details about our general guidance on our website, as well as a link to the contact details for the team. That gives our generic details on there. I've also given you a link to our Suffolk Local Access Forum, which the County Council support. This is an organisation which has a number of members that cover user groups, individuals interested in recreational access, some landowners, but also some organisations like the National Trust and representatives from Natural England. So do have a look at that, and that'll give you the details on the members. Like I said, they are a separate entities than the County Council, but we do support them in the work that they do. So thank you for your time. I will stop sharing now. Well, I hope to, when I can find that. And I will go through, see if there's any questions on the chat, and I'll answer those during Bev's presentation.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Bev.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name's Beverley McClean. That's going to be a hard presentation to follow, Claire. That was really brilliant. Well done. I'm the planning officer for the National Landscape team, and tonight I'm going to be talking to you about a very specific aspect of the work I'm involved with, and that is the Strengthen, Seek to Further duty. I am part of the National Landscape team, like I say. We deliver a lot more than just planning, everything from nature recovery, community engagement projects. We run several grant schemes, which hopefully you're aware of: the Sustainable Development Fund, landscape enhancement initiatives to underground overhead lines, power lines, and a recently launched Natural Environment Improvement Fund around Sizewell C. Thanks to BFER and SALC for inviting me along tonight to talk to you about the Strengthen duty, which came into force on the 26th of December 2023. It took DEFRA a year to get guidance out. And like I said, it came into force when the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act gained royal assent in 2023. I am focusing specifically on the duty tonight in relation to planning and specifically neighbourhood planning, but it's important to just bear in mind this duty applies to any function that your parish may carry out as you are a relevant authority. I also want to say this is not about trying to sound heavy-handed, so I don't mean to come across that you have to do this, you have to do that. It's very much meant to try and unpick the duty a wee bit for you and show you how you can embed it into neighbourhood plan and meet your duty when you get to your examination. The planning inspector will be looking for that sort of evidence. So areas of outstanding natural beauty were designated because of their very high quality landscape character and the quality of that character. They are actually on a power with national parks, and they were designated under the National Parks and Access to the Countryside Act that Claire mentioned earlier. This map just shows the two areas that the National Landscape team works across. On the left is the Dedham Vale National Landscape. It's this slightly darker green area that is actually the statutorily protected area. The lighter green area up here to the Cambridgeshire border is actually the project area to the Dedham Vale, but it doesn't have the same level of statutory protection. And the duty that I'm talking about tonight does only apply within the AOMB area and on land on the margins of it, so within its setting. So the Dedham Vale was designated in 1970. It runs along the Essex-Suffolk border, approximately 3 to 4 kilometres either side of the River Stour. It takes in the tributaries of the Brecks and Brecks, and it extends from Catawade in the east, runs up just to the east of Bures, and it's really a typical lowland river valley landscape. Very gentle valley sides, historic villages, and a really rich, diverse biodiversity, with the main land use being really agricultural. On the right, we have the Suffolk and Essex Coast and Heaths National Landscape, as it's now called, and that's because this AONB was extended in 2020 to include the north bank of the south bank of the Stour, in tendering. So it doesn't go quite as far as Harwich, but runs up to Manningtree. There's a little gap between the Dedham Vale and the Suffolk and Essex Coast and Heaths National Landscapes that isn't designated, but any development that happens in there would be mainly classed as a setting to both of them. So just bear that in mind, really. It's much bigger, 441 square kilometres or 170 miles. It extends just south of Lowestoft around Kessingland and comes right down, like I say, to Harwich on the southern shore of the River Stour. The eastern boundary is bound by the North Sea, and the A12 is very approximately the boundary. It doesn't run exactly along the A12, but that's a rough boundary. Large tracts of this area are in conservation management by organisations like the Wildlife Trust and RSPB, but again, agriculture more towards the south is a really dominant land use throughout, and again, pretty villages, and the Essex, the estuaries and river valleys are a dominant feature along this eastern coastal North Seaboard of the area. You might pick up I'm switching terms between AONB and national landscapes. Legally, these areas are still designated as areas of outstanding natural beauty, and in your neighbourhood plan, it would be appropriate to reference them as such. The planning inspector at appeals, certainly that I've been to, has talked about areas of outstanding natural beauty and made it clear that that is the legal name and entity that he'd be referring to. The term national landscape was a branding exercise driven forward by the National Landscape Association, which is the umbrella organisation that I work under for all the national landscapes in England and Wales, and it was about trying to give a cohesion to the whole network, and sort of give us a hook really to hang that we are nationally important landscapes, and we have a big role to play in the climate and ecological crises. We have a big role to play in contributing to saving those. So, like I say, if you are doing a neighbourhood plan, you're on safe ground using the term area of outstanding natural beauty still. So what is this term natural beauty all about? It can seem a bit nebulous, but I've just put these slides in to try and illustrate it. Areas of outstanding natural beauty are defined for the natural beauty. This is what Natural England will go out and look for when they're designating areas like Dedham Vale or the Suffolk and Essex Coast and Heaths. And there are about 7 indicators that are used that collectively combine together to help define the natural beauty of an area. So these are all from the Dedham Vale, so apologies for those people from the Suffolk and Essex Coast and Heaths National Landscape. So the first is landscape quality, and this is all about the intactness and condition of a piece of landscape. You will see in this picture here, the river's just to the south of this. This is Gentle Valley side. The field pattern's still intact, the hedgerows are still intact. There's not a lot in the way of development. You might just have an isolated farm up here, but the valley bottom landscape is functioning ecologically. It's functioning as a floodplain as well, beside the river. So this would have a high landscape quality, and you would be seeking to protect that and avoid plonking a development right in the middle of that. The second is to try and illustrate scenic quality. This is Boxted Bridge, which there's a very long-running planning application to replace this small historic iron bridge. Scenic quality, it's all about landscape patterns again, but how all the different features and land uses come together and help define a sort of how a sense of appeal of an area, how attractive, how calm an area feels. And I think this little bridge sums it up perfectly. It nestles very quietly in the valley bottom here. The vegetation has grown up around it, and it just looks like the landscape and the bridge have coexisted for a very long time, which they have, and it feels like that when they're there. The third quality, I think, is less relevant, really. Relative wildness. We're not talking here about the maybe Highlands of Scotland, and possibly the closest we would get to relative wildness in the coast and Heaths would be maybe out on Orfordness or somewhere like that, on the peninsula there. But nonetheless, it is still a feature of natural beauty. Relative tranquility is another important feature. I talk a lot about this through my planning work, and CPRE have done an awful lot of work around trying to define and clarify what tranquility is about. They have identified detractors to tranquility. So this is obvious intrusive development in an area that it wasn't in. It might be aircraft noise, it might be excess lighting, and lighting is a huge thing in planning at the moment. And so items that contribute to tranquility is a very strong perception that you're in a naturalised area, lots of bird song, audible, like I say, a nice wildlife area with not too much in the way of human interference, obvious to the eye. So that's tranquility. Natural heritage features speak for themselves, and like I said, the Dedham Vale and the coast and Heaths are both very rich, either from ancient woodlands that we have here in this photo, or the heathlands around Dunwich in that area. Cultural heritage also important, and that can include built heritage, like we have the historic villages, which are a very important feature of the natural beauty of both the Dedham Vale and the coast and Heaths, or it can be archaeology as well. And the final one is associations, be that with writers or artists. And the Dedham Vale is unique in that it's the only area of outstanding natural beauty designated for its associations with artists like Cedric Morris, Constable, Munnings, John Nash, but like I say, it's unique for that reason, but it's a very big part of that designation. So Natural England use all these different characters when they're out in the field, looking at variations to boundaries, to AOMBs, or designating new ones. They look at all those features together and then come together and put a line on a map. So we have national parks and we have national landscapes, or areas of outstanding natural beauty. National parks have different statutory purposes to national landscapes, and the only one that we have to worry about in this area is conserving, enhancing natural beauty. So all those features that I just talked about earlier, the sole purpose the sole statutory purpose is to conserve and enhance natural beauty. So there has been a little bit of disquiet for a while that the previous duty of regard wasn't really strong enough to protect the natural beauty. So in 2019, the then government commissioned a landscape review to look into ways of strengthening really the duty, or improving how that sole purpose could be met to conserve and enhance the natural beauty. The landscape review identified 27 recommendations in total, but only 3 are really appropriate to what I'm talking about tonight. So the first one was about strengthening AONB management plans with clear priorities and actions for nature recovery and a stronger status in law. Proposal 23 took that concept of stronger status in law and recommended the need to strengthen the purpose in law, the duty to protect and conserve natural landscapes. And proposal 24 brought that all together and recommended that we needed new purposes, we needed new powers and resources, and we should be rebranded. The second key driver underpinning the strengthened Section 85 duty was the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act. That came into force, like I say, in October 2023. And it was really through Section 245 of this Parliamentary Act that the duty was strengthened. So it recommended that wording in Section 85 of the Countryside and Rights of Way Act was strengthened, and that's where the detailed wording for the new duty sits now. I just want to mention a little bit about AONB management plans. These are statutory documents, so if you're doing or preparing a neighbourhood plan, you should really be aware of your management plan, the management plan for your area, the objectives in that, and try and align your policies with some of the objectives in the management plans. So on the left here we have the previous duty of regard, which was live for about 10-15 years. The key wording required relevant authorities to must have regard to the specified purpose. So you must have regard to conserving and enhancing the national natural beauty for AONBs. For many years it was felt that this was too weak. It was open to misinterpretation when we got to planning appeals, and it wasn't an active duty in any way, and there was no requirement to demonstrate that you've taken it into account. So it led to all sorts of issues when it came to planning disputes and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, it was considered that the statutory purposes just weren't being met really under this duty. So because of the previous drivers, like I say, the Landscapes Review and the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, we now have a new duty. This applies to all relevant authorities, and I'll talk a wee bit in a moment about who is a relevant authority. So it requires all relevant authorities carrying out any duty in a national landscape that their area may fall within. They are now required to must seek to further the specified purpose. So you must now seek to further and enhance the natural beauty of an AONB if your parish falls within an area of outstanding natural beauty or is covered by one, a part of it even. So where do we go next? Yeah, who are relevant authorities? There are something like 10 to 12,000 relevant authorities, and this can include anyone working from government, parliamentary officers, officers of the Crown, so organisations like Natural England, Forestry Commission, all statutory undertakers, so anyone promoting some of the NSIPs that Claire mentioned earlier, Sizewell, Norwich to Tilbury, all those great big schemes, the Anglian Water Pipeline that came through, the Dedham Vale, and up to Worsted in the Coast and Heath scheme. They are bound by this duty, and this final bottom one here, all public bodies, so local planning authorities, parish and town councils. So the duty sits on everyone, and it also sits on, under this government department, it sits on planning inspectors, and it sits on the secretaries of state as well. So it's quite far-reaching, and at each relevant authority is bound to demonstrate how they have taken this stronger, strengthened Section 85 into account in whatever task that they're performing. So where do we go next? So I've just pulled this little table together, really. As I said at the start, it applies to any function that a relevant authority might carry out. So if you're a highways authority, that might be letting a contract for grass cutting. So that wouldn't be going and cutting, you know, like a footpath maybe in the middle of high summer when the biodiversity is, you know, depending on that. It can be any strategy that you produce, it can be any guidance or documents that you do, but the underlying principle in whatever you are doing is about trying to prevent unnecessary harm to the national landscape and positively seeking to conserve and enhance. So with regards to neighbourhood plans, there's a number of ways that you can do this, really demonstrate how you've taken the duty into account when you're writing your neighbourhood plan. For a first easy way is familiarising yourself with the neighbourhood plan, management plan. Like I say, these are statutory documents, they're material planning considerations, so I think that's quite an easy win. Include reference to the national landscape or AONB in your vision, you know, just recognising that, you know, your parish actually falls within an AONB. If your neighbourhood plan is proposing housing sites, you could include a criteria in your strategic housing assessment document underpinning site allocations, and that could be quite simple as, you know, by allocating this site, will this conserve and enhance the national landscape, you know. So think about suitable criteria that you could include in there. I mean, I'm rushing through this tonight, but be happy to talk to anyone about this individually when you know, if you do have more specific queries outside the meeting. The National Landscape team have produced several bits of document. One is the use of colour document, and another more recently is the lighting design guide. Many neighbourhood plans have design policies, and again, another really easy win would be try and align your design policies around lighting, for instance, say with the good lighting principles that are in the National Landscape lighting guidance. That, you know, like I say, that would be a very easy win. And then down to landscaping, promoting native species typical of your area, you know, things like avoiding close bordered fencing. If streets are mainly hedged, then try and retain those sorts of features in your area rather than inappropriate fencing that can be quite urbanising. So that's just a bit of a whistle stop tour through ways that you could align your plan. Like I say, the duty came into force 2 years ago in October, and it took until December 2024 before BFER published some guidance for local authorities on how they could seek to further the duty, Section 85 duty. It's very high level. We were slightly underwhelmed when this came out after waiting 12 months. And I've worked with a small group of planners on behalf of the National Landscape Association, developing more pragmatic, more detailed briefing notes to assist relevant authorities on how they could meet their duty. The briefing note for local planning authorities, this middle one, does talk about neighbourhood planning as well. And if you don't look at anything else, I would recommend that you do have a quick look at that. It just sets out some of the steps that you could follow to demonstrate compliance with the duty. You could also look at the NLA briefing note for relevant authorities. Again, it takes quite a pragmatic approach. But yeah, they are worth looking at. And like I say, they're all hyperlinked, and I've put all these together in a slide at the end as well. So when you're doing your neighbourhood plans and you're thinking of, have we met section 85, or these are just some prompts really for you. I just need to get that off the screen a wee bit. So what statutory purpose are you trying to meet? In this case, like I say, if your parish falls within an AONB, it will be, you're trying to conserve and enhance the AONB. Have you taken all reasonable and proportionate measures in the neighbourhood plan? So have you tried to align policies? Have you looked at the management plan? Do your policies line up with the management plan policies as well as the local plan policies? There is a much stronger requirement now for everything to line up. So in that way, so the local authorities are meant to have a much bigger say in the production of the management plan before they sign them off, to try and ensure that there is this cross compliance and alignment. Is the policies and what you're promoting in your neighbourhood plan, is that going to avoid harm? Have you built in suitable mitigation to address those harms? Can the measures that you're promoting be mitigated and managed, maintained and monitored? And the bottom two is, have you aligned your objectives with objectives in the management plan? And finally, don't forget, we're here if you do want to come and talk to us about your neighbourhood plan. We will get consulted on them anyway, but early engagement's always really helpful, and it can avoid sort of problems down the line and delays that, we can try and smooth those out if we engage early on. But like I say, this is very much meant to be an aid memoir about ways that you can apply, rather than saying you really have to do this or we're going to make life difficult. It's not about that really. So I think in terms of the section 85 duty, I just want to say it's an active duty and there is a requirement that you do something. So that could be, like I say, a line in the management plans, pick out some of the principles in national landscape documents and look for opportunities where you can mirror those and embed them into your document. It has to be outcomes focused, so something has to happen on the ground that will positively conserve and enhance. There's a huge emphasis on avoiding harm, and there's a requirement just to demonstrate how you've taken section 85 into account while preparing your document now. So like I say, this looks like a lot of links. There's a landscape review, government response, maybe not so much interest to you, but the DEFRA guidance is in here, the briefing notes are in here, and the two management plans if you're not already familiar with those. The management plans are updated every 5 years. There's now a requirement for us to put really tight targets into the management plans linked to the Environment Act. So again, each national landscape has its own set of targets for nature recovery, So that's woodlands and tree and hedge planting and, strangely, peat production. It's maybe not so strange for the coast and heath, but peat is a very small habitat in the Dedhamvale, but nonetheless we inherited that from BFER, so it's in there as a target. I've just gone through, like I say, things to consider. So I'd just like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you tonight. These are my contact details if you do want to talk to me more about your neighbourhood plans. I just have to add, despite everything I've just said, I went to a meeting yesterday in Chichester where we were informed that the government is reviewing Section 85. We should know within a month what that review means and what's involved. So I would advise you maybe to hold off just maybe for a month if you are working on a neighbourhood plan at the moment. Having said that, I still think it's still quite good practice to get to know your management plan and try and align the documents. I can't see things like that falling away. And if you're on going down that route, then I should think you're really, close to being able to demonstrate that you've taken the conservation enhancement of the AONB into account. If this whole thing's repealed, it's just a quick reminder, there is still a policy in the National Planning Policy Framework that puts great weight onto conserving and enhancing special qualities and natural beauty. So again, that is something you'll have to do to align your plan with the NPPF and your local plan. But who knows where we're going with this review and where we might end up. But I just felt it would be dishonest to not tell you that it was under review at the moment. So if you can hold back for a month, we'll be a bit clearer. But I'm still happy to talk to you during that month, and just about your neighbourhood plans and how they might work within the context of the areas of outstanding natural beauty. So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I hope it was informative. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Bev. That really was interesting. I'm sure everyone agreed. It's a shame we didn't have longer because there was so much information to take in from you and also from Claire. I want to say thank you as well to Claire because I noticed you were answering some of the questions that popped up in the chat.
I think I've answered everything, Tracy. I apologise if I've missed something, but if not, there's a couple of things I want to come back on with some information for a couple of people.
Okay, if anybody didn't get their question answered, then please feel free to ask it again now. But otherwise, you should have Bev's information, contact information, and she said she's very pleased to be able to talk to anybody after this when we have more time. And I'm sure, Claire, the message would go out from you as well, wouldn't it, that people would contact you if they wanted to about anything specific that you raised in your presentation as well.
Yeah, and also for myself,
yeah.
Tracy, I think a couple of people I have met on the call, but my team are active, they're out on the ground. So as a parish council, if you have got a pressing issue and you want to meet one of the area officers or the area manager, or if it's quite a pressing issue, you do get me, but they will come out and meet with the parish council. So please be aware of that. We are a team that are out and about on the ground and are more than happy to meet, whether it's a landowner, whether it's a parish council, or whether it's an individual. We are more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it goes without saying because there was a lot of information there. Sophie, I see you've joined us. Hi. That anybody could actually just get in touch with you if that was the quickest way, and you could then pass messages on or
sure,
or any
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lovely. We did say at the beginning that the presentation will be shared. It takes about a week to 10 days, time I've topped and towed it and things. So that will be shared. We generally send that to yourself, Sophie, and then you can share it out with all of those that also weren't able to come tonight that you know of, perhaps. I have nothing more to add or say. I don't know if Bev or Claire or Sophie does. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
I don't think I do.
No. Okay, well, I think that then just bids us to say farewell for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's always seems even longer when it's at the end of a busy day, and we've still got a few days of the week to go yet as well. So thank you so much for your time. I can't say bid you all on a safe journey because you're probably in your homes, but safe journey into the next room where perhaps a coffee or something stronger is waiting for you. Thank you very much for your time.